What Amish brides must prove. Before the wedding, my future husband tested me twice. The apron is folded on my lap. The linen is yellowed now. The lye smell is gone, but my fingers still remember it. I am 81 years old, and I am holding the apron I wore the week they decided whether I was fit to marry. My name is Lavina. I was born in a small settlement outside Mount Hope in Holmes County, Ohio, and I share the stories we were never allowed to speak out loud. This apron has been in the bottom of my cedar chest for 62 years. Tonight, I am taking it out, because there is something I have carried longer than this cloth. He tested me twice. The first test, the whole district watched. The second test, only I knew it was happening, and I did not know what it was for 41 years. Not my 7 sisters. Not the bishop's wife who taught me to kneel. Not my own 4 daughters, sleeping in their own houses tonight. None of them have ever heard what I am about to say. It was forbidden to speak of, and it was the most honest thing my husband ever did. Before I tell you the rest, I want to know who is sitting with me tonight. Where are you listening from, friend? What porch, what kitchen, what quiet room? Leave the name of your town in the comments. I read every single one before I sleep. And if my voice feels like company, press the little bell and the like, so I know to keep telling. There is no hurry. Sit with me. The kettle is warm. The night before my proving week began, I sat on the edge of my bed and folded this apron 3 times. Once for the girl I had been, once for the woman I was about to become, once for whoever I would have to become if I failed. The kerosene lamp threw a soft yellow circle on the floorboards. My mother had washed the apron twice in lye. She said the cloth had to be cleaner than my heart. She did not smile when she said it. She did not need to. In our settlement, a mother's silence carried more weight than any sermon a bishop ever gave. I was 17 years old. The wedding was set for the second Tuesday after harvest. In the way it was done where I grew up, a bride was not simply chosen. A bride was watched, not in any one ceremony, not in any rule the bishop wrote down. It was quieter than that. The mothers and aunts of the groom would invite the girl to their kitchens. They would set her to work. They would say very little. They would notice everything, her hands, her patience, whether she swept under the table or only around it, whether she answered back when corrected. This was the proving, and every girl in our district knew it without being told. His name was Amos. I will not say more of his face than this. He had hands that were already old at 20. Carpenter's hands, knuckles like the knots in pine. He was not a talkative man. When he sat in a room, the room got quieter, not louder. He had asked for me in the spring, and I had said yes the way a girl is taught to say yes, with eyes lowered, and a small nod, and no fuss made. We had walked home from singings together for 2 summers. He had never once held my hand. That was the script. We followed it. The proving began on a Monday. His mother sent word that I was to come at sunset. I walked the 2 miles in the gray light, my apron tied tight, my prayer cap pinned straight. When I came into her kitchen, there were 4 women waiting, his mother, 3 of his aunts. They did not greet me. They pointed at the flour, the lard, the salt, the yeast. They pointed at the iron stove. His mother said one sentence. She said, "Bread for 15 before the noon bell." Then she sat down at the table with her sisters, and they began to sew, and they did not look at me again, not directly, but I felt every breath they took. The flour was cold. The kitchen was strange. The stove ran hotter on the left side than the right, and I did not know it yet. I measured. I kneaded. I covered the dough with a damp linen and set it by the warm wall to rise. While I waited, I scrubbed the bowl. I swept the floor. I swept under the table, not around it. One of the aunts pressed her thumbprint into my dough to check the rise. She said nothing. She wiped her thumb on her own apron and went back to her stitching. My hands were shaking. I did not let them see my hands shake. I shaped the loaves. I slid them into the oven. I knelt at the iron door and watched through the small gap, the way my mother had taught me. And then the bread fell. The left side ran too hot. The crust cracked wrong, and the loaves caved in the middle like tired hearts. I lifted them out, and the kitchen went very still. His mother stood up. She did not raise her voice. She said, "Begin again." Just those 2 words. The aunts did not look up from their sewing. I put on a fresh apron. I measured the flour again. I did not weep. I would not weep. I would not give them that. If you are still with me, friend, stay close. The hardest part is not the kitchen. The hardest part comes later, on the road home. I am going to tell you something I have never said out loud to another living soul, and I want you to hear it in the order it happened to me. If this story is finding you tonight, leave one word in the comments. Just one. The name of the woman who taught you how to keep a quiet face. Mine was my mother. I will tell you hers before this night is done. The second loaves rose. The second loaves baked through. I sliced one open at the noon bell, and the crumb was even. And the steam came out clean, and his mother took one bite and gave the smallest nod a woman can give. The aunts ate without speaking. I served them. I cleared the plates. I washed every dish before I left, and I folded the dishcloth in thirds, the way Amos's mother folded hers, not the way my own mother folded ours. I had been watching. They had been watching me watch. That was the proving, and I passed. Amos was waiting at the end of the lane to walk me home in the dusk. He had not said a word to me all day. He did not say a word for the first half mile. And then, on the dark stretch where the maple trees close over the road, he stopped walking, and he asked me a question that did not belong to the proving at all. His boots stopped on the gravel. Mine stopped a half step later. The cold was coming up off the field, and I could feel it against the back of my neck, where the prayer cap did not cover. He did not turn to face me. He looked at the road ahead, at the place where the maples made a dark tunnel, and he said, "Lavina, if no one was watching, would you still have baked the second loaf?" That was the question. 11 words. I did not understand them. I thought he was teasing, in the dry way carpenters tease. I gave him a small laugh and said, "Of course." He nodded once. We walked the rest of the way in silence. I did not sleep that night. I married him 3 weeks later, in his mother's front room, with 280 guests and a white cake my sisters had baked. I wore a new blue dress and the same apron from the proving folded into my chest as a keepsake. For 41 years, I carried his question in the bottom of my mind the way I carried that apron in the bottom of my chest. I never asked him what he meant. I never told anyone he had asked it. In my own head, I gave it a name. I called it the second asking. I did not know yet that the asking was not finished. I thought it was one strange sentence on one dark road. I was wrong. Stay with me here, friend. This is the part I have never said aloud. If you have ever loved someone for a long time and felt them quietly measuring you, and you did not know what the measuring was for, you will understand what comes next. If this is reaching you in a kitchen, on a porch, in a bed where the other side is empty now, I am glad you are here. Leave a small word below if you want me to keep going. Just one word. I will see it. We had a long marriage. 41 years and 4 months. We raised 4 daughters and buried 1 son between them. A boy who lived 11 days and was laid in a pine box no longer than my forearm. Amos carved the box himself. He did not weep at the burial. He wept in the barn that night, where he thought no one could hear him, and I stood outside the barn door for an hour and did not go in. That was our way. We grieved in separate rooms and met again at the supper table. We were faithful to each other. We were tender, in the small ways the plain folk are tender. A hand on the shoulder while passing the bread, a quilt tucked higher on a winter night. He was a good man. I want that to be plain. But the asking did not stop. It came back. After a hard winter when we lost 2 calves, he asked me, sitting by the iron stove, if I would still have come to the farm with him if my father had said no. After our son was buried, he asked me, in the barn loft, if I would still have married him knowing what God would take. After our oldest daughter left for her own husband's house, he asked me, on the porch steps, if I would still be plain if the ordnung had let me choose otherwise. Each time the question came soft, sideways, as if he had not been thinking about it. Each time I gave him the easy answer. Of course, of course, of course! And each time he nodded once, and looked at the road and said nothing more. I did not understand until the spring he turned 68. I was washing his Sunday shirt at the basin, and the water was cold, and I was thinking of nothing in particular, and the whole shape of it came to me at once, the way a quilt pattern shows it itself only when you step back from the frame. It was not one question. It had never been one question. It was the same question, asked again and again across 41 years, in 100 small versions, and I had answered it wrong every single time. He had not been asking whether I would still bake the loaf. He had been asking whether I had ever chosen him, whether the proving and the ordnung and my mother's silent kitchen had left me any room at all to want him, whether I was his wife or whether I was only a girl who had passed a test. He was dying by then, though we did not yet have the word for it. The doctor in town used careful language. I used careful language back. The night before he went, I sat by his bed in the small downstairs room where we had moved him, and his breath was thin, and his hand was all ever cool in mine. I leaned close to his ear. I said the answer I should have given him on the dark road when I was 17. I said, Amos, I would have baked the second loaf for you in an empty kitchen. He opened his eyes. He looked at me for a long moment. He squeezed my hand once. He did not need to say anything. He had heard me. That was enough. He was gone before the sun came up. I understand it now. In a way, I could not understand it then. The community tested my hands. They wanted to know if I could feed his table, sweep his floor, hold my tongue when an older woman corrected me. That test was honest, in its own way. I passed it, and I was proud, in the quiet way we were allowed to be proud. But his test was different. His test was not about my hands. His test was about whether I had ever been free enough to want him on purpose. I do not condemn him for asking. I do not condemn the ordnung for making him need to ask. I only see it now, the way an old woman sees a long road from the top of a hill. Both tests were real. Only one of them was about love. Friend, if you have stayed with me this far, tell me in the comments which part you will carry. The kitchen, the road, the basin of cold water, the shirt, the hand going cool. I want to know what stayed. There is so much more I have not yet said about the women of our settlement and the silences we kept. And if you press the bell and the subscribe, I will tell you the next one, when the lamp is lit again. I read your words before I sleep. You are not listening alone. The apron is still on my lap. My hands are 81 years old now, and they shake a little when I fold the linen. I fold it 3 times, the way I folded it the night before my proving. Once for the girl I was, once for the woman I became, once for the woman I am still becoming, here at the end. Somewhere in your life there is a person who has been asking you a quiet question for years, in small sideways ways, and you have been giving the easy answer because you did not know it was a question at all. Listen for it tonight. Say the true answer while they can hear you. The silence will keep. The hearing will not.